to do that, and he is so jazzed. This weekend is about you. It's about what you want. It's about getting a head start in the new year. And regardless of whether you think you can or you can't, you can. And as you go through the weekend, things are going to start to pop. And you're going to say, wow, I never thought of that before. How many of you have been here before? Cool. How many first-timers? Nice, nice. Well, first-timers, welcome. How many of you were streaming and came to us? Okay, not that many. Okay, we have got a great video that we're going to play for you right now. So, Tommy? Ladies and gentlemen, Sandy Gallagher and Bob Proctor.
Greetings.
What a good group! Wow. What a
Hello.
good group. Are you guys ready for this? Yeah? Now, how many first timers here? First time at one of our events. Stand up. I can't see you. Oh my gosh, turn around. Look at this. This is amazing. And I'm so excited about this. I'm also wondering how many streamers this is the first time. This is the camera that talks to the streamers. I want everybody to stand up. With this room and the streamers, we have over 4,000 people tuning in from 111 countries. So let's stand up and say hello to the streamers. Welcome, streamers. Woo! That is so cool. You know, I always get super excited when I see people say this is the first time at one of our events, because it was in 2006 that I went to my first Bob Proctor event. And I bet you there's some people in here, you don't know what you're getting in for. It's like someone invited you, and here you are, and you're like, what's to come? Well, that was me. I didn't even know it was a Bob Proctor event. And, you know, it said in the video, and this is so true, it was just minutes before I felt like he chopped my head off and shook it all around and put it back on, and I'm sitting there going, what's up, what's down, what's right, what's left? And he got me to reevaluate my life in such a big way. And so I'm so excited. What I really want for you is to think of this not as a seminar, but as one of the most special experiences you're going to have in your life. And I want you to really invite the idea of this being a magical 3.5 days together, because it has the ability to completely transform your life. If you take this information and you apply it and you suspend disbelief at times and you just say to yourself, I'm going to play full out. I'm going to give this everything I got. And your whole life can totally be transformed in one seminar, one event. And it's extremely powerful. So just give that to yourself, that you're going to play full out. I'm particularly enthused about this seminar because, as Gina said, Bob has spent months. And the truth is he spent over 50 years creating this program. It's a brand new program, and it's extremely powerful. And we're so proud of it, and I just know you're going to love it. So just tighten your seatbelts and get ready for an amazing experience.
You know,
Bob?
a lot of what we're going to be doing in here, Sandy has done, just according to the way we're going to teach it, over the past 10, 15 years. It's a program that covers material. Now, I've never been to another program where you're going to get the material that we've got all put together. As most of you know, I started to study this a long time ago. And I've been to many, many programs, and I've read an enormous number of books. I have a wonderful library. And you'll find real good information in one place, but then there's something missing. There's something really good in another place, and there's something missing there. And I have found what we've done is put together information here that I think you're going to start to understand why there's such a very small percentage of the population that really make it. You know, over the past 50 years, entrepreneurial opportunities are all over the place. And we find a lot of people taking advantage of them, but then they don't get to where they want to go. Network marketing companies offer an individual the opportunity to become very, very wealthy, but not that many do. Some do, though. Anyone that starts in one of those companies should go from the bottom right to the top in a relatively short period of time if they really understood the rules. Now, some do it. I found years ago that a lot of very successful people were unconscious competents. They did not know why they were doing what they were doing. Therefore, they couldn't transfer it. They couldn't give it to somebody else. It was non-transferable. They had all this wonderful information, but they didn't know how to share it. Companies would be puzzled. They would have somebody that's an absolute star. I did a lot of work with the Prudential, with Metropolitan Life, with Great Eastern over in Asia. The big insurance companies, they would hire people, and some of them go just like a rocket right to the top. Others, they just get off the ground and then they'd stay there. And everybody's puzzled, why don't they go where they want? The path is there and it's very clear. Now, we've done a number of seminars on paradigms, and the paradigm, of course, slows us down. And it'll bring us to an abrupt halt if we don't do anything with it. We could flip the screen on here for us, please. There we go. You're going to learn some ideas, or you're going to get involved in some ideas today and tomorrow, mostly tomorrow, that I think will open your mind, it'll open your eyes, and you'll start to see why people take off and really make things happen in a big way. But they're in the minority. I was living in England, I was earning a lot of money, and I had absolutely no idea why I was. I was cleaning offices. I was cleaning a lot of offices in a lot of different places. But I couldn't tell you why I was doing well. I thought I was in the cleaning business. I wasn't in the cleaning business at all. I was in this business. I was helping cleaners set goals, figure out how to get a better car, bigger, nicer home. And one day I asked, how did I start winning like this? And I couldn't answer it. I couldn't even find anybody that could tell me. See, I was doing well and I didn't know why. I fell into the category that most successful people fall into. I was an unconscious competent. And so I made up my mind I was going to try and figure it out. And I started to study, and I couldn't find anyone that could really explain it properly. But I found a team of people over the number of years. It took me 9.5 years. And there was probably 4 or 5 people that were involved, different teachers that helped me get the dots to connect. And when I did, all I wanted to do was share this. And I think you're going to want to do the same thing. As you start to understand this, all you want to do is share it with other people. It's so simple, it's so obvious, and yet it's missed by almost everyone. If you're very successful now, and I know some of you are, you'll start to see why you are. If you're giving it everything you've got, and you know you're pretty sharp, and it's not going anywhere, you're going to understand why it's not. Now, when I look at this quote of Albert Einstein, it was right in the first page in your book. When I look at it first, and thinking of this seminar, I got thinking of you, of Sandy. Sandy came to our company. She was, you could say, an out-of-the-box kind of person to come into this business. She was a securities attorney, working with numbers, with regulations, government regulations, working with banks, merging banks, turning them public, all that kind of work. And it was all very left-brain work. Of course, lawyers are left-brain people. And here she was getting into something where we were working with the other side of our brain. How did you find it at first?
I have to laugh because I remember still in the seminar, and Bob quoted Albert Einstein. Look at what he said. When I examined myself and my methods of thought, I came to the conclusion that the gift of fantasy has meant more to me than my talent for absorbing positive knowledge. And so when I came to the seminar, I had a Juris Doctorate. I had all kind of master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and I was practicing law. And I remember Bob asked me how much in deals had I done during my career. And I said, well, I stopped counting at 100 billion. And he said, he looks at me and he said, you mean 100 million, right? And I said, no, my first deal was $893 million. I mean, I worked in big numbers. And the last time I fantasized was maybe in kindergarten. And Bob was up on stage and he had this quote, and talent of fantasy. And I thought, what? And then he started talking about how we have to tap into our imagination. We have to let our mind just fly. And don't worry about how it's going to happen. Just let your imagination fly. And I started to kind of entertain this idea. And then all of a sudden I flashed to my law colleagues and to my dad, who was a client. And I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to think about this concept?
Now, you've been working at this for a while, quite a while. And she saw a house she wanted to buy. It was out of her budget. It was out of the box. And I said, I'll tell you what I want you to do. Get the agent to take you out to the house. And then when you get in the house, ask them if they'd leave you alone. Just say, just leave me in the house. Now I said, I want you to go and sit in every room. Then fantasize that you're living in this house. This is your room. Visualize yourself going to bed. Visualize yourself cooking. And she thought I was right out of my mind. I said, you go do it. Because I'm going to tell you something. Everything you require to own that house is already here. You're just not in harmony with it. However, if you do exactly what I'm telling you, you're going to find all kinds of crazy stuff will start happening. And of course, now you're in the house. Now, explain. No, the reason we're going through this, some of you are very left brain. Some of you are your paradigm's going to try and get you to stop doing some of the things we're suggesting. If you do them, you're going to find they'll work. But they're silly. They're not what you're used to doing. Now, when you started to do it, what happened? What went on in your mind? You must have thought you were crazy.
I knew I was.
Yeah.
No, everything started to change, but I remember, and I want you to think about this. Bob says the house was out of my budget. Well, I never work with budgets. I don't even like budgets, but it was way beyond what I thought was reasonable. In my mind, I mean, it was like at least a 0 to beyond reason. But it was a beautiful home, and, I never seriously entertained the idea of buying it once I figured out how much it cost, because I never even look at prices anymore. How many of you go to the store and you look at the price to see if you're going to like the shirt? You look at the price. If it's in the price range, you're going to look at it. Well, I would do that with houses. I'd look within a certain range, and that's all I'd look at. And then I started to just expand and not look at the price at all. And I Googled. I was going to visit Cynthia Kersey on Whidbey Island, and I Googled luxury waterfront homes, Whidbey Island. And this listing popped up at me, and I just fell in love with it. And so, I tell Bob about it. He tells me, go make an appointment, go see the house. So I did, and I saw it, and then I called him, and he said, well, what'd you think? And I said, oh my God, I loved it. It was like it was built for me. And so he says, well, now you need to go back and look at it. And that's when he told me, go live in each of the rooms. And now I had been experimenting with the fantasy and the imagination, and I had had some really good successes, but this was like really stretching me. And so I did it anyway, because he kept saying, do you believe what we teach? And he's like, you've got to do this. So I go there, and I go into each room. Well, first off, the realtors are following me around, trying to sell the house. And so I'm like, okay, fine. And I still remember standing in the kitchen, and I turn and I look at them, and I said, would you mind just leaving me with the house? Just leave me to be with the house. And they're looking at me like, okay, lady. And so I went, and in each room, like I went in the bedroom, and I want you to think about this, how silly this would seem to do. But it's so powerful. I went in the bedroom, and I sat in the chair, and I looked out at the water. I imagined the fireplace going and having a book in my hand and reading, and what that would feel like. And then I went and I looked in the bathroom, and I imagined taking a jacuzzi tub, looking out at the water. And then I went and used the restroom, just pretending like experience. What am I doing? I'm using my fantasy, my talent of fantasy, to feel that this is a real experience. And then I go into the great room in the kitchen, and I imagine my family there, and we're having Christmas dinner, and I can hear the conversations we're having. And the more I start doing this, the more vivid it becomes, and the more I really start to feel it. And it became so real. And so I saw the whole house, and then called Bob up. Well, what'd you think? And I said, oh my God, I loved it. I could really imagine living there. And he's like, okay, now here's what you have to do. Now keep in mind, I didn't have an offer down on this house at all, no contract. And he says, now you need to create an invitation to your family to come to Christmas dinner at your new home on Whidbey Island. And I start chuckling like that's really funny. And he said, no, I'm serious. If you believe what we teach, this is what you're going to do. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like really pushing some buttons. But I created the invite and I sent it, and they all RSVP. Yeah, but what's this new house on Whidbey Island? You know, like we'll talk about that later. And now, see, he's so smart. Now I'm in a corner. I've got to make this happen. I've got to do this. And so I got the virtual tour running on my computer. I had it on my iPhone. I had a color book of the house. I kept looking at it and visualizing, imagining myself in that house. I'm not using my positive specialized knowledge. I'm using my imagination and fantasy and feeling it. And what am I doing when I'm doing that? I'm changing the whole vibration I'm in. And all of a sudden I started attracting ideas and resources and ways to do this.
But wait a minute. What you're really doing is you're following direction. No, that's what you're doing. Now, we're going to cover this a couple of different ways tonight. I'm going to have somebody else come up here later on, and we're going to show you how things can happen where they're not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to, but they do happen. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is it that there's such a very small, select group of people that really win? How come? Why are there very brilliant people that lose? Ask yourself these questions. Now, do you see some of you, well, I've mentioned before, some of you are already very successful, and you may think, you've got there. Well, we haven't got there. It doesn't matter how much you're earning, doesn't matter how well you're doing. There's still another level way beyond wherever you are. Yet every one of us can win by following exactly the same rules. Now, we'll give you examples this evening. The real purpose tonight of the program is just to get your mind loosened up a bit. It would be like working with clay, and you want to get the clay loose so you can start to work with it properly. You don't want it too hard. Because it's only on a rare occasion that you're going to be in an environment like this. This is not a common or a normal environment. You've got people that have come from all different walks of life. They've come from various different parts of the world, and they've all come for the same reason. There's something in here that's attracting them. There's something they're in harmony with. There's something they want to get that's here, and they're not sure what it is. So you're in a magnificent environment here. You can say things to people that if you said it on the street, they'd look at you, they'd think you were crazy. If you said it to your family, they'd say, what are you talking about? Who the hell do you think you are? You can't do that. Come on. Get real. And how often you hear you got to be realistic? Well, you see, the idea, we would normally do this just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I said, no, let's do it Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And tonight, what we really want to do is get you to stop and really think. Get rid of some of the jazz that's been going on in your mind for the past few days and really start thinking. Because I've watched this happen. Now, it happened with Sandy. She ended up, to our benefit, as a partner in the company. But there's other people here that similar results, some even beyond what Sandy's accomplished. But she accomplished it, they accomplished it by following many of these rules. You see, when I started, the man that gave me this book, Think and Grow Rich, he said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Well, I really didn't believe that. And even if I had never done exactly what I was told. In fact, I did the exact opposite usually of what I was told. But I didn't believe it, but I had the idea that I thought he believes it. And I started to do what he said. And like that, things started to happen. Now, I went a long time, and it was while I was in England, I really started to think, how is this all happening? And I didn't have any trouble getting into fantasy because that's where I was spending my time anyway. I always lived in a fantasy world. I never lived in the real world, and that caused a lot of problems for me everywhere I went, because they tell me to wake up. You're stupid. Quit thinking that way. You can't do that. You see? Then, what Einstein's saying here, I mean, he was one of the brightest guys that ever walked on the planet. I think it's pretty good advice for us to follow. And that's pretty well along the line this program goes. Now, we get into the next part here. Wise gold creation and art. Now, we had that flashed in the film, but we'll take another look at it because it does get interesting.
This is really interesting. Think of it this way. The art of goal creation is truly a creative process. The definition of creation is the manipulation of energy. You're causing one type of energy to move to another type of energy. How many of you thought of goals in that way before this moment? Before that seminar, I never would have thought of as goal creation as a creative process. In the thought of manipulation of energy, what does that mean, to manipulate energy? And how do we move energy from one form to another? How many of you have boiled a kettle of water? Everybody in the room. So you have manipulated energy. You have moved energy from one form to another. You have the water in the kettle, you place the heat underneath it, it turns into steam, and if you keep it going, it turns into ether, and you have a burnt kettle. It disappears into no thing, and you can't even see it. Well, what we want to do is the reverse of that. We want to take the no thing and turn it into something physical in our world.
Well,
Really?
Sandy, the truth is everybody's already doing it. You're already doing this. You usually do it on a scale that is very understandable, and you don't really think of it the way you're doing it. But you see, we start with nothing, and we create something. This hotel was nothing but an idea in somebody's mind at one time. The decor in the hotel, it was nothing but an idea in someone's mind at one time. The suit that you're wearing or the ring on your hand, nothing but an idea in somebody's mind. How did it become a suit or a ring? How about your house? How about everything that's in the house? Everything, the house itself, was nothing but an idea. Well, you see, the beautiful truth is you can think and you can take ideas and you can turn them into physical form. You're causing one type of energy to move to another type of energy. If nothing's created or destroyed, that's the only way it could happen. There is no other way. All science and all theology make that very clear. Nothing's created or destroyed.
And here's an important point, is this energy may never have moved into that direction until you came along. it might never have moved in that direction. Think about that. When I was in that seminar, I came up with a goal because Bob kept saying, what do you want? What do you really want? And, you know, at this point, my imagination's running wild, and I'm sitting there physically, but I'm mentally in boardrooms and executive offices that I'd been in for the last 2 decades at that time. And I just was like, I want to package this information, and I want this in the boardrooms and the executive offices, and I want to create a program with him. And I could have left that idea in that seminar room. But I fell in love with that idea. And then I manipulated the energies, used the creative process to create it. What idea do you have that you want to bring into form? That's what you want to really get in touch with here.
When, like, Sandy told me later on, when she was there thinking that, now, there was a quick switch. Here you go from the very analytical, legal individual. You start fantasizing. You see somebody doing something. You think, I want to do what he's doing. This is way out of the box for a securities attorney. There must have been something inside her that started moving. She must have been in harmony with that concept, or she wouldn't have felt that way about it. However, when you went to write it out, what did you do?
Well, we had this little workbook, and I opened the workbook, and, you know, Bob kept saying, what do you want? What do you really want? Because when this idea first came to my mind, I just let it go. I did not grab onto it. And Bob kept talking, and he said, you know, most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. He was quoting Earl Nightingale. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then he said, for most people, when their heart stops beating, it'll be a mere formality. And I thought, And then he quoted Bill Gove. And Bill Gove was like the Frank Sinatra of public speakers. And he quoted Bill Gove saying, if I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me you think I should be. Not the me I think my spouse thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I got to be me, and I better know who me is. And it was like this bucket of ice got dumped on my head. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there's something more that I want to do. And I started to fall in love with this idea. Something inside of me was really jazzed and coming alive. And so I opened the book and I wrote down in teeny tiny print, I want to be in the inner circle of this company.
No. Hold on a minute. She wrote it in little tiny print. What would cause a person to do that? That's a self-image. See, the image she was holding wouldn't permit her to see herself doing this. And when she did, there was an enormous conflict in her mind. She sees herself as a securities attorney. And here she is now, going to do what I'm doing, which was a long ways removed from what she was doing. So she wrote it, but in very, very small writing in the corner of a page. She really didn't believe it could happen. Now, the paradigm's trying to stop her, but the desire is trying to push the paradigm out. That's going to happen to people here in this room. I guarantee it'll happen. Maybe happening to somebody now. But it will definitely happen. Because something is in you wants to express itself in a greater way, and you're not letting it out. There's some of you see yourself in positions where you can earn all kinds of money, and you may be broke. And the paradigm saying you can't do that. And so you're going to have this argument going inside. Just like Sandy did, that caused her to write it very small so that nobody could see it, and then cover it up with another sheet. I'm going to give you a couple of more examples before the evening's over. What we want to do, as I say tonight, I want to get your mind to a point where you think, well, maybe this isn't too crazy. Maybe this guy has got it figured out, the process. Well, I have. I really have. You see, I sat down with one of these one day, and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. Well, we're talking to you, and you're all over the world. See, you are the streamer. You're the one that's permitting us to bring this right into your home, into your office, onto your laptop, maybe in your car, from 111 different countries just before we started. So do you see, I had no idea how that was going to happen. I only knew it was going to happen. And that's the way it works. You won't know how it's going to happen. Hillary did not know how to get to the top of the mountain until after he got there. Ford didn't know how to build a V8 engine till after they built it. Yet you're not going to know how to execute your dream until after you execute it. So do you see, you got to go where you've never been. Now, that's sort of scary and exciting all at the same time. But we're using examples that are real. Here.
Goal creation involves certain progressive steps in the energetic process. Some of the steps require the use of your higher mental faculties. So there's certain steps that you have to take in order to manipulate the energy to create what you want. And if you miss a step, nothing's going to happen. So think about that. Think about what it is that you want. What did you come here to this seminar for? Like, get out a pad of paper, if you will, and write down what you think you came here for, what you think it is that you want to create.
If you have to leave, they're going to give these out later. Okay. That's your environment. For you. Thank you.
And streamers, make sure you do this too. Write down what you think you want to create here. And as you're writing this down, start to get emotionally involved with the idea. How would you feel that this has already happened? Imagine something that could only happen after this has happened. And how would you feel? And what we're going to do is come back throughout the weekend and keep looking at this and expanding on it. But I want you to think about that, and then think about the fact that we're talking about progressive steps in the energetic process. And that we have to tap into our mental faculties. So what I mean there, what are our mental faculties? Perception, will, the reason, imagination, intuition, memory. We've talked about imagination. In that seminar, Bob had my imagination going like crazy. And that's why I came up with these goals. Be in the inner circle of this company. Be Bob Proctor's closest advisor. Create a program with him to bring into these companies. And then I write it in teeny tiny print because it was so far removed from what I thought I could do. But if you listen to this, if you follow the progressive steps, if you understand how to manipulate the energetic process, you know you can create anything you want. So I slammed the book shut. I didn't want anybody at my table to see it. I definitely didn't share it with anybody at the table. And it was smaller print than I've ever written because I didn't even want to see it. And then what happened when I slammed the book shut? My mind's just telling me all the reasons I can't do it, how ridiculous it is. I mean, who are you? You're this corporate attorney. Bob Proctor, I mean, he's been in this industry for 57 years now. And he has an incredible team. How am I going to be in the inner circle of this team? And your mind just starts going and going. But I kept coming back to falling in love with the idea and to opening my mind to understanding how to work with the creative process.
Well, if you're going to work with the creative process, you have to understand yourself. So you're going to see this program is broken into different parts. And we are part of the animal world, but there's no one on the planet, so far as we know, like us. We have been gifted with higher faculties. Now, you can go about what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That gets you in touch with your material world. And as long as you live in a physical body and correspond with the material world, you're going to be using those sensory factors. If you're going to execute the talents that you've been gifted with at birth, you're going to have to get in and understand the higher side of your own personality. We have a young man, Scott Edwards, that works in the studio with me. He's from Manchester in England. In fact, he's in the back of the room here running this tonight, this streaming. And when I told him that we were writing this, he said, is perception going to be a part of it? I thought about it, and I thought, the whole thing's based on perception. See, perception is one of our higher faculties. Perception is our point of view. It's how we see things. Our perception is going to dictate what we see. Now, that's one of the faculties. Imagination is another one. Intuition's one. You see, when you ask a question, the answer is always there. Whatever you ask, you get it. Problem is, we don't understand that. We really don't understand it. If nothing is created or destroyed, and you've got a question, you'd have to have an answer. Now, that's based on the law of polarity. That's the law of opposites. You see? You couldn't have a question without an answer. When you ask the question, the answer is there. It's the flip side of the coin. It's like inside, outside, up, down, hot, cold. Yet it's the opposite side of the same thing. So when you ask the question, understand the answer is there. You've got to be receptive or you won't hear it. You hear it with your intuitive factor. That's a higher faculty. It's like memory or the will or reason. So you've got little pets at home. They don't have these faculties. But we have them. Well, these faculties, when properly employed, they have the potential to bring us into harmony with the law. Bring this physical instrument we're living in into harmony with the law. When we do that, then everything starts to flow. See, I don't think I heard Sandy tell you that her family was there for Christmas in her home. It was her home by Christmas. This was, well, it was before Thanksgiving that she was wandering around playing make-believe. You got to believe. You got to make believe. And it was all fantasy, but through the proper use of her faculties, which she was beginning to learn about, she brought herself into harmony with that house. And when she was in harmony with the house, and the house was in harmony with her, that's where she was living. You're only having your life what you're in harmony with. If you don't like what you've got, you better change the vibration you're in, because you have attracted it into your life. And if you don't like it, I don't love you anymore, the way you go. You can't stay where you don't belong. But you can't go where you don't belong either. Some of you want a lot of money, but it's not welcome at your place. It's not welcome. So it doesn't come there. When it's welcome, it'll come. It goes where it's invited. You invite it, but then it's not welcome. The door's closed when it gets there. You got to think about some of these things. It's life changing. Now, think about it.
Well, it says if you miss a step, nothing happens. That's where 97% of the people live. 97%. And I remember first hearing that and thinking that's just crazy that 97% of the people are not really making it happen. And in fact, when I was interviewed by Larry King, and he's interviewed people, famous people all over the world. And I asked him, I said, of all the people you've interviewed, how many do you think are really living the life that they want to live? And he looked at me, he looked me right in the eye, and he said, not many. Very, very small percent. Now, why is that? Why is that? I remember when I first started fantasizing and imagining, and I was keeping a journal of all these things that I wanted. And we went to a family, it's like a reunion we did every year at Lake Curlew in Washington State. And the whole family was there, and I'm in the cabin, and I'm writing all these things out, doing what I was told to do at the seminar. And then I go out, and the whole family's by the campfire. And I walk out, and I'm like, guess what I'm going to do? And I start telling them these things that I had come up with that are so far removed from where I had been, where I was in my physical world.
I think what Sandy didn't elaborate on, her father was her model. He was a banking attorney, and he was at Lake Curlew.
In fact, my mom told me when I was 3, I decided I wanted to be a banking attorney just like my dad. And I used fantasy and imagination to imagine myself being, I didn't know what I was doing, but to imagine myself being a banking attorney just like my dad. And that was the whole path I was on. And here's Dad and my brothers and cousins, and they're all sitting there looking at me like, what has happened to Sandy? They really thought I had lost my mind. I was just doing what I was taught in the seminar. You got to think about that. When you leave this room, you talk to people about this, they're going to think you are cuckoo. I found out years after that first seminar that my family was thinking about doing a family intervention. Like, what happened to Sandy? And, now...
Sandy, hold on. Before you go any further, I want you to think, it sounds sort of funny, they're going to have an intervention. But that was very real. She's quitting the law practice. Her dad was one of her clients. He got a letter along with a couple of thousand other people. It's over. They thought she was out of her mind. Well, I'm going to tell you, when you go out of here on Sunday, yet you start talking about doing some of the things we're going to suggest, you're going to have people that are very close to you that are going to think you've lost it. Now, I'm not exaggerating. The reason we're teaching this the way we are right now is we want to get your mind into a state where you will open up. And if you do, you'll start to see why this works. You won't only know how, but you're going to understand why. Yet it becomes so obvious you'll wonder why you've ever missed it. But you have that paradigm, man, is it strong? It's that little sucker inside of you that's controlling you. So you see, everything the family's telling you was in harmony with the paradigm. So here she is. She got all these people in her outside world, her family, her loved ones. They're telling her that she's crazy, and her paradigm is telling her she's crazy too. And I'm saying, no, you're not crazy. I don't think some of her family would ever speak to me if they saw me. Some of them don't like me. I know they don't like me. No, I really don't give a damn, but that's their problem. I'm a nice person, Well, that's the way I look at it. I don't let what somebody else's opinion bother me. You're never going to get everybody to like you. And if you're going to do things that are extraordinary, there's going to be a lot of people that will say things about you probably aren't very nice. This is not for lightweights. If it was, there wouldn't just be 3 out of 100. There'd be 97 out of 100 winning, and the 3 would be losing. How did you handle it?
Well, when they were all looking at me like I was crazy, I actually, I came out there, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And I was like so enthused about it. This is what you're going to be like when you leave the seminar. And when they gave me those looks, and they're like, they literally looked at me like I was just totally off my rocker. And so I just sort of started to slink back into the cabin. In my mind, I abandoned these ideas that I wanted. So quickly, just gone. And I felt so alone because I had something that had really woken up in me. And then I was like, everyone's looking at me like, this is just insanity. And then I thought, wait a minute, what did I learn? And what do I want? And then I started thinking, why am I listening to what they're saying? What about what Bob Proctor was saying? What about the results that he gets? And I thought, he has some pretty amazing results. With a background that he'll tell you about, he didn't make it through first year of high school. He said he was losing and gaining speed. He lost two jobs in one day. And this is where he was when he got exposed to this information. And then I look at, he was sought after all over the world when I first met him at that seminar. And he had helped millions of people around the world. And I thought, shouldn't I listen to him? And so I decided I was going to listen to him.
You know, that can be a difficult question to answer sometimes. It certainly was for me on a number of different occasions, because I went through what we're talking about, and anybody who's accomplished anything has gone through this. If we're going to take advice from someone, we should go to someone, if we're asking for advice, that's already getting the results we want to get, and then ask them for help. Odds on they're going to give you the help. They're going to tell you. But they may not be in harmony with all the people that are close to you, with your loved ones. Now, after the fact, once it's obvious you're on the right track, then they will say, I knew you were right all along. You know, it's just the way it works.
Well, I just made a decision that I was going to do what Bob said, unless and until I found out he was lying or he didn't know what he was talking about. And that was 12 and a half years ago. And my life has completely changed. It's expanded in such a big and beautiful way. But it started with me being very skeptical that this could work for me. And I just listened to what he said. I did what he said. I sent the Christmas invitation out before I even owned the house. That's just one of many things that I did. I'll leave you with this, and I'm going to hand it over to Bob. I had been CEO of the company for 4.5 months, and I was still practicing law full time and working on the program that I came up with in that seminar. And Bob came to me one day, and he looks at me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" And he's just glaring at me. When you get the Bob Proctor look, it's very unnerving. And he's glaring at me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then he goes, "Are you in or are you out?" And I'm like, oh my God, it's time. I have to leave the law practice. And I wrote a beautiful letter. And it was explaining why I was going to leave this career that I had built my life around and why I was going into this new career. And it was just really a great letter. But I kept queuing it up in my email, and I couldn't hit send. So finally, after this encounter, I had it there, all queued up, over 2,000 people, clients and colleagues. And I was going to hit send, and I couldn't do it. So I picked up the phone, and I called Bob. Don't ever call Bob if you don't want to do what you really want to do, but you don't want to do it. And I called him, and he's like, I go, the letter, it's all queued up, but I can't hit send. Hit send! He goes, jump! You'll develop wings along the way. Hit send! And I hit the send button. And I heard that noise. But I was thinking, maybe it didn't go out. So I looked in the outbox, and I'm praying it's hung up in the outbox. Why am I freaking out? Kyle Cease was at one of our events. He's a comedian. He's brilliant. And he said, you can always measure what you're letting go of, but you can never measure what you're going to gain, what you're going to get. And I think about that, and I think back on that moment of freezing and then praying it's in the outbox hung up. Because I didn't know what was going to happen after that. I knew what I was giving up. But here's the point, one really important point. I really wasn't giving up anything. I was taking everything I'd learned up to that point, everything I'd experienced, and parlaying it into the next phase. But I didn't know what that next phase would look like, so I couldn't hit send. And then Bob just booming and I hit send.
Good timing, guys.
And I looked in the sent folder, and it had gone. Over 2,000 people. And I freaked out. But 24 hours later, I think it was 892 emails back. And every one of them was, gosh, I wish that I could do something like that. I wish I had the courage to do something. I wish I was passionate about something like that. And then there were 3 that I'll never, ever forget. They were older lawyers. They'd been practicing a long time, very successful. And they all said essentially the same thing, which was, I would love to do something like that, but I'm going to sit here at this desk till the day I die. And I knew they meant it. And I'm sure they did. Probably still sitting there. But I look back on that day and I am so grateful that I did that I hit send. It completely changed everything after that. You can understand what we're talking about to some degree. Maybe you've applied it, but there's something much bigger and better awaiting you. And you've got to be at that point sometimes where you hit send, where you jump before you're ready, where you walk through the fear, because everything you want is on the other side of fear. And there's nobody better in the world, in my opinion, than Bob Proctor to help you understand to the degree that you're willing to do that and able to do that. So I want to actually have everybody stand up and give this man a big hand for 57 years of his great work. Go back there.
I'll do it. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to ask you to flip over to page 3 in your binder. Do you know there's greatness all around you, but you're going to have to ask for help. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. Yesterday morning at 7 o'clock, I was on the phone with Mark Victor Hansen. He and Jack wrote the chicken soup books. And Mark's writing a new book on ask, he and his wife. And he was interviewing me. I was talking to him the day before. The day before was his birthday. He was 71. And I was saying, geez, how time flies. I was at his 50th birthday party. It was a big birthday party. I said, that was 21 years ago. It seemed like yesterday. But at any rate, that's when I was talking to him the day before yesterday, and he was telling me about doing this book. And he said, I want to interview for an hour or so. So I said, okay. So I said, have to be early. So we started at 7 o'clock. And what he was doing was asking me about ask. And I said, well, you know, it's a strange thing. He and Jack and somebody else, I forgot the other guy's name, had written a book one time, and in it one of them said, our problem is we don't ask for enough. And I agree with that. We don't. And we got talking about it, and I'd been thinking about it since the day before. You know, what role does ask play? And it takes you down some interesting paths. And I thought, when I was a young guy, I didn't ask for help. And I started to analyze that. I had such low self-esteem, I didn't think you'd help me if I did ask, probably. And because I had low self-esteem, I wouldn't ask. Well, this is written by Bob Richards, this page. Bob Richards was a great pole vaulter. And he's got some interesting advice on this page. if we're going to go after what we want, and this is going to be interesting as we get into this later tonight and tomorrow and next couple of days, we're going to go into an interesting place. We're going to go where you've never been. He said there are many people who could be Olympic champions, All-Americans, who have never tried. He said, I'd estimate 5 million people who could have beaten me in the pole vault the year I won it, at least 5 million. Men who were stronger, bigger, faster than I was could have done it, but they never picked up a pole. They never made the feeble effort to pick their legs up off the ground trying to get over a bar. They didn't try. Well, of course, there's a lot fall into that category. A lot don't ask, but a lot don't try. He went on to point out there's greatness all around us. There's greatness all around you. Do you know, when I made a decision that I was going to do what Ray Stanford was the man told me, everything in my life started to change. I mean, and fast. The biggest thing I learned, though, in that first situation was to do exactly what they tell you. That's not easy to do. First of all, it probably goes counter to your paradigm. Your paradigm's trying to drive you one way, and somebody else is saying, no, don't do that, go the other way. All the evidence said you shouldn't do what they're telling you, but you got to do it. Well, I learned that with Ray. I was 26. I remember back when I was probably around 30, I thought I was kind of old when I started to think. But actually, now when I look back, I realize how young I was. Well, then I got other mentors, Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant. And I mean, they were giants. They started this industry in the recorded fashion, and they became my mentors. I was working with them one-on-one, but I always did exactly what they said. Every one of them, I would pick people who demonstrate by results they know what they're talking about, and I don't argue with them. I'll do exactly what they say. Now, a person that's been dead for a couple of thousand years could have a greater impact on your life than somebody that's sitting beside you today. They don't have to be alive. I follow a mentor now that's been gone for quite a number of years, close to 100 years. You see? But I'm doing exactly what he says. I may read the same page, I don't know, for a year, every day. I want to get into his energy. I want to see it the way he sees it. I want my perception to be the same as his. Now, Richard says greatness is all around us. It's easy to be great because great people will help you. I mean, that's huge. If you don't know that, let that burn right into your mind. It's easy to be great because great people are all around you and they will help you. He says, what's fantastic about all the conventions that I go to is that the greatness in the business will come out and they share their ideas, their methods, their techniques, and everything else. He said, I've seen the greatest salespeople open up and show young salespeople exactly how they did it. They don't hold back. I've also found it true in the world of sports. Well, when I was reading that about the salespeople, I remember being in Chicago with about 450 district agents from the Prudential. Yet they give out a trophy to the number one anything, the number one agent, number one manager, number one VP. They had 20,000 agents. The number one was Ron Sempertrain. Ron Sempertrain was number one out of 20,000 agents, and he was in this seminar. So when I found out in the seminar, I asked him if he'd stand up, and I said, can I ask you a couple of questions? I said, Ron, how many people in the last year have called you and asked if they could take you out and buy you breakfast or lunch that had maybe a half a dozen well-prepared questions? Not one. Not one. That didn't surprise me. I'd done some research on this, and what Richard's talking about, they're there, but people don't ask. If you want to get good at something, go to the best. Then do exactly what they tell you. He says, I'll never forget the time that I was trying to break Dutch Warmerdom's record. That was about a foot below his record. So I called him on the phone. I said, Dutch, can you help me? I seem to have leveled off and I can't get any higher. He said, sure, Bob. Come on up and visit and I'll give you all I've got. He said, I spent 3 days with Dutch, the greatest pole vaulter in the world. For 3 days, Dutch gave me everything that he'd seen. There were things that I was doing wrong and he corrected them. To make a long story short, I went up 8 inches. 8 inches must seem like an enormous height. He said, this great guy gave me the best that he had. I found that sports champions and heroes willingly do this just to help you because they're great. I like what John Wooden, what we've got here about him. He said that he's obligated to help somebody every day who has no chance of ever reciprocating. I think. Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich, chapter 14, it was leave everyone with the impression of increase. Doesn't matter who you come in contact with. Leave them with the impression of increase. Now let's think for a moment. Emerson was a pretty sharp guy, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said the law of cause and effect is the law of laws. Whatever you put out is going to come back, so you don't have to get it back from them. You're going to do things for people that'll never have the opportunity to do anything for you. What do you care? They're part of the universe. You put it in the universe will give it all back. It's a law. It has to come back. It's a law. These laws aren't man-made, so they can't be changed by man. Fall in love with the idea, leaving everyone with the impression of increase. Now, I said, when in college, working on his master's thesis on scouting and defensive football, George Allen wrote up a 30-page survey and sent it out to the great coaches in the country. 85% answered it completely. That's why they're great. Great people share. That's what made George Allen one of the greatest football coaches in the world. Great people will tell you their secrets. Look for them. Call them on the phone. Buy their books. Go where they are. Get around them. Talk to them. It's easy to be great when you're around great people. Richards was a great pole vaulter. He competed in 3 different Olympics. Last one he did was in Melbourne in 1956. I got a very dear friend who's gone now, Milt Campbell, who won the decathlon in Melbourne in 1956. Great stories attached to him. I won't take the time out now, but I remember he knew exactly where he was going. Great people do that. They don't wonder whether they're going to reach the goal. They already know they're going to reach the goal. They're committed. Commitment's part of this program. And he and Rayford Johnson were running through the Olympic Village down in Melbourne, and Rayford says to Milt, he said, if Milt told me this once, he told me 1,000 times. He said, Milt, what do you think is going to happen? Milt said, Rayford, you've wasted your time coming here. This one's mine. See, he didn't wonder whether he was going to get to his target. He didn't wonder. Rayford obviously did, because he's asking Milt what's going to happen. Milt said, you've wasted your time. This one's mine. See, he knew. Well, when you set the goal, you got to know you're going to reach it. Now, there's a great story there about Richards asking Dutch Wormender Dam, about helping them. Let's take a look. You got a clip there of Richards? Look at this. Now watch him turn and lift himself in the air. Play that over again, can you? Amazing. Now listen to this for a moment. We're doing it again? Okay. There he goes. But he cleared it last time too, didn't he? Warmerdam eclipsed the 15-foot mark on April the 13th, 1940, when he was a 24-year-old high school mathematics teacher. Yet in the next 4 years, he broke the world outdoor record 6 more times and cleared 15 feet 43 times. That was Warmerdam. No one else made it 15 feet even once until Bob Richards in 1951 broke Warmerdam's record. He's the one that helped him. Do you have one of his films? Do you have anything on Warmerdam? I guess not. We can't go back that far. All right. Now, this quote by Wooden is pretty powerful. I'm supposed to help someone every day who can never reciprocate. W. Clement Stone in 1970 was the wealthiest man in the United States. He built the combined insurance company. W. Clement Stone read The Magnificent Obsession one weekend and then made up his mind he would live by it. The Magnificent Obsession was written by a Christian minister. And it's a marvelous book. And the concept behind it is give, but don't let anybody know you've given it to them. Stone had programs going in prisons, all kinds of help all over the world. He gave and gave and gave. He became the wealthiest man in America. Now, this is a pretty good concept. It's one that we might all attempt to adopt. Do something for someone when you know they cannot return it. Just do it and let it go. Now let's flip over here. Whoops, what did I do there? If we turn over on page 4, think, thoughts, feelings, and actions. If you're sitting at home, I truly hope you've downloaded your book. I want to say hello to Alma Roshin. So, Alma, I want to thank you for placing your trust in us, and I want to welcome you to the Proctor Gallagher Institute. Sandy and I are very happy you've joined us. I was talking to Monica DeMarin today, and she was telling me that you have joined our company as a consultant. Alma lives out here in Orange County, and She is our newest consultant anywhere in the world, out in Orange County. So, Alma, I want to welcome you, and you're going to have a wonderful time working with us. We're good people to work with. We work with great ideas, and you're going to help a lot of people. You'll earn a lot of money, and you'll have a lot of fun because you're going to take control of your life. And we're going to treat you, we're going to train you to do everything that you want to do. And this is the area I work in, so I'll be working with you quite a bit. Now, that lady made a decision she was going to step out and be in her own business, do the things for herself. Alma has. There's people all over the world that are tuned into this, and they want to do the same thing you want to do. You want to do something extraordinary. You want to tap into that big part of you that you know is there, yet you just don't feel you're utilizing it properly. That's that God-given power within you. You see, our spiritual DNA is perfect. There's perfection within us. We've been taught that, but I don't know if we really understand it. Now, if you look on page 4, down to line 8, when we look back at our lives, honestly, we can see there were a number of defining moments that determined the quality of our life. I can, and I'm sure you can look back and you'll see different points. Why did you accept the idea? Why did you do what you did? Why did you believe them? Why did you step out and bet on you? See, I think it's important that we do reflect back every now and then. The good part about looking into the past is we really just remember the good times. I mean, I could tell you some stories that would probably ruin the rest of the week for you of what happened in my life, but I don't want to spend any time looking at those. I don't remember them very often or very well, but there's a lot of good times. And man, I've had some phenomenal things happen. I had a bumper sticker for a long time. I was talking to somebody just in the last day about it. It said, expect a miracle. Expect a miracle. And that's really the way I sort of live. I expect miracles. Now, do you see, I don't think there's miracles as we think about them. I think miracle and luck and chance and those things. Voltaire said we invented those words to express known effects of unknown causes. So a miracle is really something so big, something so wonderful happening that you're at a loss to explain how it happened. You know, that was sort of like The Secret. That's the way The Secret was to me. It was like a miracle. I mean, God, there's 500 million people seen that. So my face and my teaching is in front of 500 million people. And I didn't even try for that. They were looking for me. And we say it's a well-known fact that a high percentage of the population in every part of the world miss out on much of the goodness that could be theirs. Why? Why is that? Why do people play it safe? What percentage is there? We were raised with the idea it's better to be safe than sorry. That's a bunch of jazz. It's not better to be safe than sorry at all. It's much better to be sorry if you're taking chances and getting out there and really finding out what you're capable of. You know, decision is a very big part of everything that our company teaches. Decision was a very big part of the Think and Grow Rich book. Napoleon Hill had 60 seconds to make a decision. But he didn't know that. He didn't know he only had 60 seconds. And Carnegie had asked him a question. He had 60 seconds to answer it. He answered it in about 25 seconds. Changed his life and the lives of millions of people because of the work it gave him. Well, right here between 17 and 23, put a circle around that paragraph. Make a decision now that in 6 months, a year, 5 years from now, when you look back at the time that you spent on this program, that this too will be a significant and pinnacle moment in your life up to this point. Make up your mind that that's what this particular seminar is going to be. Okay? Now, how can we do that? We can do that by really paying attention. I see they've printed up some little rules, I guess. Let's take a look at them. There's a card here. Everybody got that card? It's 2 different colors. It's the Art of Goal Creation Pact. It's a pact, they're saying. They're calling it a pact. Well, here it is anyway. Participate fully. Make a commitment. Right now, you're going to participate fully. No halfway. Listen and follow directions quickly. Listen and follow directions quickly. 3, place books and belongings on chair before you leave the room at lunch and at breaks. Place your books and stuff on your chair before you go on a break. 4, leave the room immediately at the break or at lunch so we can clean up the space. There seems to be always some people that want to hang around. It's easier to work when the room is clear. We've got people that are wanting to make sure it's tidy. And the last one, post on social media. I guess that's hashtag, is it, Bob Proctor? Right? Now, let's all try and follow this. How would we look back 5 years, 6 months, 2 years, and say, boy, this was really an important thing. I'm so glad I went to that weekend. Now, that'll happen if you really let yourself get into this. You really let yourself get lost, okay? Now, you've probably been in a lot of seminars in the past and possibly have heard some of what you're going to hear here in this seminar. But you probably never had it, if you keep going here, in the context that it's going to be presented over the next couple of days. And it's like Scott Edwards there said, talking about perception, it's when you hear some information, some of it, well, I know that, I heard that before, but then when it's mixed with something else, you put the 2 different pieces of information together and everything seems to change. Your perception about the situation changes completely. This is why you want to be open, ready for the suggestions. In the inner circle, an interesting thing happened one day in an inner circle. It's a coaching program we have that I work with people on. And there's, every now and then we'll have a Q&A with the inner circle. And there's one person, he was on the Q&A, and he said, you know, Bob, he said, I've always got questions. And he said, I think of these questions, and I write them down because I want to remember them, because I know you've got the answer for these questions that I'm thinking of. And then when I'm on the call, I go to ask the question, and I know the answer. And I smiled, and I said, that's really interesting. You know what's happening? You think that I'm going to get the answer. I'm the medium through which you get the answer. And so when you go to ask the question, when you're with me on the call, then you're receptive to the answer. You think, I'm going to give it. Because you've moved into a receptive state, the answer is there. It was always there. You just weren't receptive. It was an interesting point that came out. Well, understand this. When you ask a question, the answer's already there. I have so many people come and say, you know, they'll explain something and say, what do you think I should do? I'll look at them and I'll say, you already know what you should do. You already know. What they're looking for is approval. See, the answers are always with us. We've got the answers. The trick is to act on them. Act on them. Now, consider for a moment all the special instruments and things we have that only a short time ago weren't even fantasies. I mean, we're moving at such a clip. I was saying something to somebody the other day. I said I'd never been in an Uber. And you talk about opportunities, and I heard about Uber when it first started. Dummy. Could have bought some nice stock there. Any rate, I've never been in one. And somebody said, how come? I said, I don't know. I just never have. Well, you know, there's all kinds of things around that are handy that we don't use. There's the biggest taxi company in the world and they don't own a car, you know. Think of all the things we've got at our disposal today. I mean, we got a lot of things that are sitting that we can use to change our life like that. Are we aware of them? Do we know how to use them? Are we taking advantage of everything that we've got? Understand the potential has always been here to create all these wonderful tools. It's always been here. The way to build one of these microphones that'll pick up and amplify my voice, even though there's no wires attached to it, the way to do this has always been here. But it's only recently we've been able to do it. Book on demand, printing on demand. You don't need to have thousands of books printed. You got to have one printed. Somebody got smart and got a new idea going. All the different things that we have, the phone that we've got. My God, it's a computer you can stick in your shirt pocket. All these things we've got have always been here. Where did they come from? They came from the marvelous mind of an individual that was looking at improving the quality of their life and the quality of other people's lives. So we want to get our mind into a very receptive state because we're going to be talking about going somewhere where we've never been. And to do that, it's not an easy thing to do. Because there's a little person lives inside of you that we call our paradigm, and it's going to try and talk you out of it. It doesn't want you to do it. Yet it's going to hold you back. Well, you know, I don't need to do that. I know this stuff. You know what the hell, I've studied it for a long time, you know. What you want to do is take a look at what you're doing. I don't care how well you're doing. Take a look at it and say, is this really the best I can do? See, the truth is, we don't know about the best we can do. It's so far beyond where we're living. And if we're going after it, that's living. And if we're not, that's dying. It's that simple. If you're going after something you already know how to get, you're not growing. And if you're not going after something you don't know how to get, you're probably dying. You're either going sideways or you're going backwards. Now, when we come back, we're going to be talking about something where you're really going to investigate your potential. And then I'm going to, a little later on, I'm going to get somebody to come up and we're going to talk about goals that have been reached that are ridiculous odds from really nowhere to extraordinary success. So, I want you to really open your mind and become receptive. Now, at the end of this program, we're going to ask you to pick a couple of accountability partners. We're going to do this in threes, so each one of you would have to have two. Now, if you're sitting next to your spouse or your business partner or something, makes sense, I'd just pick you. That's probably not the best person to pick. You want to pick somebody that's not going to let you off the hook. You want somebody that, if you say it, you're going to do it. You pick somebody to be your accountability partner that you got a lot of respect for, and you wouldn't want them to think badly of you. Now, don't be in a rush to pick somebody. Don't be in a rush. You've got until Sunday afternoon. Don't feel obligated to pick anyone in particular, but we do want you to pick two. then you're going to sign a little pact. And you're going to communicate on a fairly regular basis. Not for a long time, just for a very short time, but just making sure you're staying on track. When you are accountable to someone, you have raised the odds of your success tremendously. You've just moved it way up the scale. And if you're going after something like we're going to be recommending, it's going to scare you. It'll scare you. Now, you're tough, you're not going to tell anybody you're scared, but you'll be scared. And so you need help. And the accountability partner makes a big difference. See, Peggy McCall here, you've been into this for a long time. Makes a difference, doesn't it? Increase your income substantially. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to take a break. Is Gina around? There she is. I want you to give this woman a hand. She has worked, no, hold on. She has worked with me now for 33 years. And I'm going to tell you, you couldn't find anyone that could equal her. Oh, God, she's just phenomenal. She anticipates things. I phone her around and say, I've already got it. It's done. You see? Give her a big hand.
All right. In the room right now, they're going to play a quick housekeeping video for those that are live with us. But I wanted to come and talk to you guys. We have about 1,000 people who are watching this right now for free on Facebook and YouTube. And the free preview is ending right now. So first, I want to really encourage you to join us for the entire weekend. I want to encourage you to share this on your social media so your friends and family members can watch this too. This was an incredible first 90 minutes. Now, I know Bob and Sandy are just scratching the surface, and I can't believe how deep this seminar has gotten in just the first 90 minutes. I cannot wait for the rest of the seminar. We're going to go the rest of the night, which is about 90 more minutes. Bob was talking about Phil Goldfine, who he's going to bring up and talk about goals. Phil is a goal master. He's been listening to everything Bob and Sandy have said to do for the last 20 years, I think. And the things he's achieved are incredible. So you don't want to miss that session. For those of you joining us for the free review, when you sign up right now, you're going to get the workbook emailed to you right away so you can download it and join us over on our real live stream page where you can chat with everyone who is live streaming in for the weekend. Now for our live streamers, we are so incredibly happy that you're here. Go ahead, if you haven't already, got your workbook in front of you, get your pen out. It's going to be a great rest of the evening. 90 more minutes. We'll go until 10 o'clock Pacific, all day tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. So take a quick break and we'll be right back in 20 minutes.